Now remember, our great-grandparents always knew that we would make it in spite of, not because of.
Okay.
Right? So to expect to make it because of is the first failing.
Okay.
Because then you can lose hope. You can despair will overtake you. All
Okay.
right? Problem is, you have to know that we're making it in this culture in spite of.
Okay.
But when I can look up and see that a Jesse Jackson gets 7 million votes, when most people in the United States don't vote, period, black, white, yellow, pink, polka dot, there, all right, and he got 7 million votes. And that when he took the state of Michigan and took the state of South Carolina, all right? And now, so he took southern states and northern states, right? And that he didn't even have a budget to fit it. In fact, when I was on Jesse's campaign the first time, right, is that the man who ran against him from Minnesota, I can't think of his name now, but spent more money in 2 months than was spent in our entire campaign, right? You see what I'm saying? We didn't even have the money. In other words, what America says, nor did we buy TV time. Yet, in the second one, it didn't buy TV time till a little bitty at the end. We still got 7 million votes, right? Now, that says that says something nothing else can say.
Okay.
Let's look at another thing. Is that the present chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, mean the man who is head of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, name it. All right? If they hold a gun in the name of the United States government, he's in charge of them.
Okay.
Right? Is black.
Okay.
Right? So that we can see progress.
Okay.
Now, there are more black millionaires now than there ever were. Right? Now, I can show you progress.
Okay.
At the same time, my central concern is what happens to the masses of black people, right? And statistically, it doesn't say that we're making it percentage-wise in terms of the mass, and that's what ultimately is important, right? But it says that the nation is ready for far more than we might give it credit for. That you cannot look at one sector of black community and say that spells it all. Nor can you look at this upward mobile sector and say that proves it all. You have to take the total picture in. And once you do, you don't lose hope. All right? Now, you were talking about your great-grandfather, right?
No, my regular grandfather.
Your grandfather.
First generation.
Well, let me give you my great-grandfather at 94.
Okay.
All right? Because same thing happened, so to speak. I had brought my great-grandfather was in slavery, right? So it was yours in 94, right? Let me give it to you. I came home. I had a recording by Marian Anderson, and I wanted to play it. And this is a long time ago. This was during World War II. And and we didn't have that many record players, and didn't have any TV, and it wasn't even out there for anybody unless you were extremely rich. And I played the record player. I started playing Marian Anderson. I turned it down low because it's about midnight. But then I got to turn it up because I wanted to hear better. Well, I heard a noise on the other side of the wall, and I remembered my great-grandfather's bed was right on the other side of the wall. And I went in to apologize. And as I went through the center of the house, and I got to his bedroom, and I turned, the old man was sitting up in bed. Marian Anderson had been singing a spiritual, I Don't Feel No Ways Tired. That was first a spiritual before it was a gospel song, right? And the old man was sitting up in bed, and he had his hand up in the air, and he said, I don't feel no ways tired. Well, my great-grandfather, at 94 years old, went through slavery and serfdom and been kicked around and kept things going so that I could be here and that I could fight back. If he could take it, and he died at 96 and still have some hope, right? Going through all he's been through, right? I cannot, not only can I not afford not to be without hope, I can't afford not to fight back against the racism around. Nor can I stop helping black people make it at any chance I can, no matter where they are in the spectrum.
Right.
Huh? It's not a matter of being against up here. I want to help a man become another millionaire.
Right.
I want to help a person down here make certain that they have enough to eat and sleep and
Right.
take care of the kids too.
Mhm.
Right? So that it doesn't matter. It's not one against the other.
Mhm.
Right? We're not each other's enemies. The system is our enemies. Huh? It is the system of racism, not of capitalism per se. Right? There's nothing wrong with capitalism per se that we couldn't fix.
Right.
All right? Add racism, and that's the problem. Right? First, we've got to deal with racism.
Right.
That's our number one problem.
You direct a program called BASIC, Action
Basic.
Training Discovery Basic.
Yeah,
Share with us how everything that you've shared with us
Yeah.
today comes into play with Basic, the
Okay.
Basic workshop.
It is my organization. It's Black Action Strategies and Information Center. That's what BASIC stands for, BASIC. All right? And most people in the United States now know about BASIC because you saw me on the Oprah Winfrey Show, right? Doing one of the BASIC workshops. I've been here today doing another BASIC workshop. I was doing
All
a
right,
motivational workshop today.
That's right.
all right?
ABCD brought him down here again, folks. We'll give him another plug.
All right.
Still celebrating 25 years.
That's exactly
I wasn't
right.
born 25 years ago, but
Right.
continue.
That's precisely right, and it's very important because if you don't celebrate the stuff before you were born, you won't even know when you die. Is that or what it means to live? All right. But Black Action Strategy Information Center was created to create new methods and programs and materials for dealing with helping black people on one hand and destroying racism on the other hand.
Okay.
And both of those are the package.
Okay.
One of them by themselves doesn't do it.
Okay.
I want to be as deeply involved in doing something for black communities as I am doing something to stop racism in the white community.
Okay.
All right.
The balance.
And, is because until both of them are taken care of, there is no sense of freedom.
Right.
Simply to get rid of racism, and not to in fact help people get the negative stuff out of their mind. Count the businesses that black people own in this town on two hands, maybe one.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you can't blame racism for that when this is has one of the largest communities in the state, and it's a rich state.
Right.
All right. That's because somebody's not doing economic development.
Right.
All right. But deeper than that, it's because there's a lot of black folk in this town that don't have faith in themselves.
Right.
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 And are not even trying to be in charge of their own lives, that
Right.
prefer to work for.
Do you think we've given it over to just some of my own observations, or maybe do you think the black church has a role in that?
Let me take off. Is that the black church has been the only institution we've had. Out of the black church has come all the leadership we've had, with rare exception.
Right.
In fact, a good deal of the people we do not know as connected, church connected, their fathers were ministers.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Is that the church has given us more leaders, directly or indirectly. Martin Luther King was a minister. David Abernathy was a minister. I'm a minister. I mean, you name the people in the civil rights movement, right, who continue to make it happen. Right? But our businesses grew out of our churches.
Right.
Now, that also says great responsibility. See, now, because I can say I could give you 10 more things from the black church, but I don't want to get over and so enthusiastic about it that I want the church to think that they can take their rest in Zion.
Yeah, right.
Right? It's because they are the only one,
Right.
the only institution we control. Because black people do give them more money and attention, right? Then great responsibility comes with that. Huh? To whom much is given, Scripture again, since we're
Right.
talking about the church,
You're
and to whom
absolutely
much
right.
is given, much is expected.
Right.
Right?
Much is expected.
So that I expect the church to continue that role. I expect the church to be one that helps other people get into business.
Right.
And if necessary, get into business themselves. Because job creation has to be done. I know a church in Detroit, Michigan, that basically owns about 4 square blocks. If you put it all together, it's scattered over about 10 square blocks, all right? Is of businesses, of franchises, of all sorts of things, right? Because they know that it is needed, and they, as a church, has the economic resources to do it.
Right.
All right? So they do it. All right. Now, that doesn't mean we must demand that anybody do anything. But what I learned from the movement is the movement itself would not have been successful without the church. Not only did ministers lead it, that's where the meetings were held. Okay?
Right.
That's who the people were who walked in the street. They were church members.
Right.
But they also got their ministers who didn't understand into church, because they came in and said, Reverend, this is about our business. This is about our lives. This is about our children. Right? This is what God would have us to do to fulfill His word. Right? So, I expect to see you next week. Right? Right? So because unto whom much is given, much is expected. Right? Is that so the church has a lead role. Right? All right? The church has a lead role. And it is my hope that the black church everywhere will get itself together. The most interesting thing is that for the first time now, 6 major black denominations came together to form a national coalition of black churches, right? And Bishop Adams, who I consider the most dynamic younger man, he's not young in the old sense anymore, but was made president of it all, made his first president. And they cut out they cut out ground for themselves to move in. And part of that was economic programming. Right. So that they know what they could do. A whole national program against AIDS, on the other hand, which is not economic, but made our people aware of certain kinds of things, you see. So that the church is working, that any particular church can do a great deal.
Okay.
Churches working together in any town can do a lot more. When a national denomination decides it's going to do more than collect money for its leadership, the National Baptist Convention USA, right, now has another man at the top. And for the first time, we have a world headquarters and other things which we wouldn't have had. The church has a tremendous response and can do it. Right. And when 6 of them come together, we can start whole insurance companies. We can start banks. We can start all sorts of things, all right? But what that's for, ultimately, is to develop the black community. See, we've got 2 tasks. We've got to end racism in America, and we've got to develop the black community. Okay. Those are the 2 tasks we got.
And that's part of what you're...
And through basic, that is my concern. It's out of that construct. What can I do personally to deal with both of these? Because I think that every black person in America, every oppressed person in America, every minority person in America, regardless of their minority, has to ask themselves those 2 questions.
Right.
What can I do to end racism on one hand, and what can I do to build my community on the other? What can I do to make it possible for more jobs, for better housing, for a better quality of living on one hand? What can I do to stop racism, discrimination, and misuse of people for no other reason than color or race or class on the other?
Okay.
See what I mean? It's hard for me to think of a black person who has any sense of who they are and all the suffering it went to give them a chance to be. It's impossible for me to see them having any integrity unless they take seriously those 2 spheres of need around which our whole history has evolved and which our whole future depends. And remember, you might make it by yourself, but you really can never make it by yourself. Right. You only bounce as high as the base from which you come in America. All right? And if there isn't a strong base, you don't bounce too high.
Right. And I always I laugh. I'm going to close now, but I have laughed with, as a performer, I share with different musicians that you may be a star, but a star can't shine without the sky. And so you always have to have that balance. I want to thank you for taking the time with us.